Hello, clients, colleagues, and friends. I'm Tara Powers, CEO of Powers Resource Center. And this week's Tara's Tips is teaching you how to do a trust building activity and come up with trust building agreements for your team. And the reason that this is such an important activity this week is because I actually am working with a client who's really struggling with conflict with one particular team member in the group. This is a person who really doesn't want to participate with the team, right? They don't want to participate in the team building event that she wanted to do, which was bring everybody together and have them take a communication assessment, the DISC tool, have them share their communication styles with each other and what they need from each other. And this person absolutely flat out refused to participate. Now, she is a member of this team. And what I realized, and I've realized this many times with many managers, is we think that the answer is actually let's bring everybody together and do a team building and we're going to fix this, one person that's really maybe wreaking havoc on the group. That's not going to happen. What we need to do is go back to basics. And what we need to do is go back to defining and agreeing as a team what trust looks like. Because we cannot team build. We cannot talk about communication styles. We cannot talk about how we want to engage in healthy conflict and debate if trust does not exist. And that is one of the foundational components of building agile teams in the VUCA environment that we're living in, the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment that we're faced with today. And so what I told her is, you know what, don't do the team building event. Your team's not ready for it. That's a few clicks down the road, right? What we need to do is really have your team regroup around trust because we got to start there. We got to set some agreements and set some expectations of how we agree to operate with one another and the behaviors we all agree to exhibit that build trust, and then go from there. And so, what I shared with her, I'm going to share with you, is this trust building or trust agreement activity that I have done with many, many, many leaders over the years. And I've done it with them because they come to me and want want to fix something, but the way they're trying to fix it is not where to start. It's always starting with trust. It's always starting with something like this. So I'm going to give you this activity. We're going to walk through all these steps. This is something you can facilitate yourself, and I encourage you to do so, right? Especially if you feel like my team is disconnected. There is conflict, or there are one or two people who are not getting along, and they're really wreaking havoc on the rest of the group. They're bringing morale down. It's a big problem. This is a great activity to kind of reset, and it gives you as the manager it empowers you as the manager to now be able to have a different discussion with those team members that aren't willing to participate. And that discussion is really around, hey, we just went through this activity, and as a team, we all agreed to these behaviors that build trust and that we were all going to commit to exhibiting them with each other and pointing them out when they happen. And I'm noticing these other things are happening that aren't in alignment with the team agreement. So it makes it less about you as the manager, and it really makes it about an agreement that we do together as a team. Much more powerful, carries much more weight, usually, right? Okay, so let's go through these steps here, and I'm going to talk you through it. But I encourage you to do this with your team because it's a really great reset button if you feel like we need to regroup and reground and connect. All right, so number one, you want to introduce the purpose of the activity. The purpose of the activity is to do an exercise with the team to build agreements around what to focus on that creates trust and cohesion. What are the behaviors that create trust and cohesion, and what can we expect it to look like when we are doing it, right? When we are actually building trust with each other. So that's the purpose of the activity. The first thing you're going to do, if you have a large team, you're going to put people into smaller groups. So we want groups of 3 to 5 people. You can do this virtually in breakout rooms. You can do it in person. And you want to give people either a flip chart or some kind of whiteboard, or just let them do it themselves. You could use Padlet or Miro, any of those online collaboration tools for this. But what you're going to have them do is in steps 3 and 4 here, you're going to ask them, number one, to share stories of teams they have been a part of at work or outside of work, sports teams, doesn't matter, that were had high levels of trust and engagement, right? Really high levels of trust and engagement. What was it like? How did people treat each other? What did they notice about that team? What did it feel like to be part of that? Right? So they're sharing a story, a personal story. They're remembering what trust feels like and looks like. The second thing that you do, and then in a separate column, is to talk about and identify the behaviors that existed or were exhibited that built that level of trust in that team. So we have this great story of a trust team been on where there was high levels of trust. What actually was going on with people to make that possible? We have to really define those behaviors. You give your group about 10, 15 minutes to brainstorm this information. Bring the group back together, step 5, so that we can share it out loud. You might not be able to share every single story, but you might ask for some really good stories of what it looked like and felt like when you were on a team that had high levels of trust. And then you're going to go through some of the behaviors that were exhibited that built trust. And as you're doing that, someone on the team, as a volunteer, can start grouping those behaviors into themes, right? We might see things that are very similar. So we want to kind of group those together. And once you've done that activity, you're going to ask people to actually then look at those behaviors that have built trust that we have all personally experienced. And we're going to vote on how well our team is currently exhibiting these behaviors on a scale from 1 to 5. 1, we're not exhibiting them at all. 5, we exhibit them every day, all the time with each other. We're doing awesome, right? So we can give people sticky notes. You could put polls up here on a whiteboard virtually and have people vote. But you're going to vote on these behaviors. And from that vote, what you will see is that 2 or 3 behaviors actually are going to score the lowest, right? There's going to be a couple behaviors that build trust that your team is not engaging in. And maybe you'll have more than a couple, but hopefully a couple will rise to the top, right? That are being scored pretty low. We don't do these very often. From that, we're going to take those top 2 or 3 behaviors, and as a team, and you could do this as a large group or a small group, it depends how much time you have. Large groups take more time. We are going to brainstorm how might we engage in these new behaviors. So let me give you an example. Let's say one of the behaviors that built trust on a team is that the team knows each other personally. So if that is something that your team scored very low in, especially in the midst of a pandemic when we're all virtual, then we might brainstorm, how can we get to know each other personally? What do we need to do differently? Maybe we have to have an extra meeting at the end of the week or every month to just get to know each other and team build with each other. Another idea is everybody had respect for the job that everyone else was doing. That might be kind of it's not necessarily a behavior, but that might be something that they shared in a story. How do we do that? Well, we're going to start doing lunch and learns where people get a chance to actually talk about a day in the life of their job and the challenges that they face so that I can have a better understanding of what it's like for them and how I impact their work. Once we identify those behaviors that we can all brainstorm and agree, this would be great if we committed to these, we're going to vote again on which of these do we want to actually implement. And then we're going to get verbal commitment from every single team member on the team. They're going to say, I commit to doing this, right? I've even had teams write them up and everybody signed it and they put it on the wall, whatever you want to do. This is the next 2 steps are the most important. We all agree that we are going to recognize when we notice people engaging in those trust building behaviors. It's not just the manager's job, it's everybody's job. And then in 90 days, we're going to check back in, see how we're doing, maybe vote again or use that scale one more time. and then we're going to recommit to anything we need to continue moving forward. So this is a simple but very effective trust building activity where you build agreements that help you create that foundation of trust. And that is what builds agile teams. And that is what helps with some of these issues that you might be experiencing. I hope that this was helpful today. If you use this with your team and it goes really well, please let me know. I'd love to know how it went. And I do hope that you can take this information, especially if your team's struggling, and just get back to the basics, right? We got to start having conversations about what trust looks like, because everything grows from trust. Trust is the seed that we plant in the ground that allows teams to grow and flourish and do the best work of their lives. If that's not there, everything starts breaking down. And if you have one person who's really not willing to participate as a team member, this is a great way to reestablish those expectations collaboratively as a team. And then that person has a choice to make. They're either going to get on board with what the team has agreed to, or maybe they might decide, I can't do this, right? This isn't a great place for me to be, or I'm not willing to participate. And that's okay. That's their choice. But that this collaborative effort around behaviors that build trust is very, very powerful. And it really does require that people get on board and agree and commit or not. So I hope this is helpful. Have a safe week. Stay healthy, stay safe, and let me know if this works for you. Thank you.